Australia, the land of kangaroos, and the land of what I call British Shonels. Because you can't convince me, this Australia is little more than the British South. A wonderful place, which God probably accidentally put on something called, I kind of accidentally made them war ready. And Australia is one of the few nations that has technically never lost a war. They have fought their way through World War One, World War Two, helped the United States in Vietnam, so I guess they lost that one, and whatever else. And because of that, Australia's concerned. But that's a total lie. What actually happened? One of the greatest Australian military defeats and one of the only war on Australian soil was against the Emu Empire. The Great Emu War. Now, the Emu Empire didn't really like the Australian Commonwealth / government and the British government, but they were peaceful until after World War One ended and Australian soldiers returned to their homeland and became farmers. There was something going on. And so because of that, and that was considering on both sides, war was brewing up. The Emu saw that as a threat to their way of life. The Emu politicians prepared whatever they could. And because of that, the Emus declared war in 1932. Led by Adolf Bordy and General Einza Boardbrain, the Emus started a full-scale invasion of Western Australia. And because of that, the Emus were successful for the first few months, and very successful. And the Australian government didn't even know that they were at war with emus. And so because of that, emu victory was seen as an inevitability. Australia was gonna lose, and so because of that, they were lost. But after soldiers got too rowdy, the Australian government declared a war back on the emus. A full-scale war. And because of that, the emu war fishery began. The Australians prepared whatever they could to defeat the emus, but it was none the wiser. Australian soldiers prepared a full-scale battle against the emus, but there was no battle where the Australians actually won. It was the greatest defeat in Australian history. Wasted ammo, rivals of the Prime Minister of Australia, declared an idiotic idea. And because of that, all of them hated him. And this is some audio from 1930. Crikey, mate, get out of the way, crikey! As you can clearly tell, that does not sound good at all. But the emus were able to create a big victory for them, considered one of the greatest wars in Australian history. The Emu Empire was able to stay around until the 1990s, until it dissolved and became part of the Australian Commonwealth. But it was still one of the greatest wars of the Australian military history, and one of the greatest victories for the emus. But then a full-scale counterattack began. But it still failed, mostly because it was mostly made by farmers, and this wasn't before the 90s Australian gun back. The emus were doing whatever they could to prove that their empire was the greatest on earth, even rivaling the British. And because of that, the emus... But Australia never suffered a single casualty in the war. The Emu Empire... The Great Emu War was kind of proven as kind of idiotic. But hey, Well, from the Australian military, it was a complete disaster. Crikey, mate, that was idiotic. All the Australian soldiers, but it was still seen looking out only in a few years World War II was about to begin. And half those men will probably be fighting against the Germans in Europe with the British soldiers. And because of that, maybe it wasn't so useless.